welcome back to my channel. I apologize for the horrible lighting and any outside noise you might hear. This is the only place I have to film right now. This is actually the third time I'm filming this video. This was supposed to be my first video of my conspiracy chat series, but like I said, the file just kept getting messed up anytime I tried to edit it. So also this video I'm going to try and do in just one take, so I apologize for the ums and the pauses, and I'm just horrible at even reading my own notes, so if there's lots of pauses and stuff, I apologize. It's also going to be probably a little short. My fiance is so sweetly keeping the air conditioner off because it's really loud, and so I really appreciate that of him. But like I said, I've already filmed this twice, and since I didn't get to explain it in my first video, I'll explain it now. My conspiracy chat series, I really want to be more of like an interactive, relaxed series, which is why I'm just in my sassy bun in this horrible lighting and just chit-chatting with you guys. I would really love to hear your guys' input on everything, maybe like start a conversation in the comments and all that good stuff. But, like I said, we'll just get right into it. So, today we are going to talk about the Titanic, which also, if you hear my notes, paper crumpling, you know the drill. If you didn't already know, or for some reason you forgot since the movie came out millions of years ago when we were kids, which I really shouldn't have seen that when I was a kid. So many people my age are like, oh, the Titanic was my favorite movie and stuff. I saw it when I was 7, and it completely traumatized me, seeing all like the dead bodies in the water, and I don't know, I had a bad experience with it, but learning more about it as I grew up, it's actually one of my favorite conspiracy theories because it's just so compelling. So, the Titanic was a luxury cruise liner that sunk after striking an iceberg on April 15, 1912. Out of the 2,227 passengers and crew, sadly, only 702 people survived. The Titanic was owned by White Star Line, and the official co-owner and the guy who actually financed the build of the Titanic, as well as 2 other ships, the Britannic and Olympic, was J.P. Morgan, who we know now from J.P. Morgan Chase, the banks and stuff like that. The Titanic and the Olympic were sister ships, so they were built and looked extremely similar to each other. The Olympic had set sail first and was in, doing its thing, being a passenger luxury cruise liner, when it actually got involved in a really bad collision with a Russian naval ship called the Hawk. During this collision, it went through extreme, severe damage where it did something to the hull, the front of the ship, and it also put a bend in the keel, which gave the ship a slight lean to the left, which a lot of people, that'll be noted a little bit later in my video. Remember that. So, after this collision, and after much debate, the Olympic was found at fault for all the damage that was concurred during this collision. So, the insurance company would not cover any of the expenses to fix the Olympic, which meant it was a huge loss for White Star Line and especially J.P. Morgan. It was claimed too expensive to fix, and it was docked in Belfast, in the same dock where the Titanic was being built. The Titanic was really behind schedule, and both White Star Line and J.P. Morgan were going to lose even more money if the Titanic didn't set sail when it was supposed to. So the theory is, which again, this is just a theory, don't sue me, in an attempt to gain insurance money and not lose out on any more money, Morgan and the head of White Star Line cooked up a plan and actually switched the ships. They would gain even more, insurance money. They would gain even more insurance money if the Titanic sank, especially because the Titanic was a newer ship, so the insurance would obviously cover it, and when it sinks due to something from Mother Nature, the insurance has to cover it. So, supposedly, they also plan to have the Californian, another ship, which was just a passenger ship, nearby when the Titanic hit the iceberg. That way, they could save all the people on board the Titanic, just get them onto the Californian. The Olympic, as well as the Titanic, were dubbed unsinkable, but the people who owned the ships assumed, obviously, nothing's unsinkable, but they assumed that this meant that it would take hours, if not days, for the Titanic to sink. So they thought that would give them enough time to get the passengers off the Titanic onto the Californian. The Californian, again, just a passenger ship, had no passengers on board that night and was only filled with blankets, sweaters, and medical supplies, which is just more fuel for the theory. The Titanic had only 20 lifeboats, and again, people think that, assuming the Titanic would take a long time to sink, that they only needed this many lifeboats because they would be able to take many trips back from the Titanic to the Californian and etc. As we sadly know, the Californian did not get to the Titanic in time, and due to so many unexpected circumstances that happened, not only did the Titanic take, just merely minutes and maybe hours to sink, there was also a lot of mess-ups between the communication between the two ships, because there happened to be that night a third ship, the Samson, that just ended up directly in between the Titanic and the Californian. So when they were trying to communicate with each other, and from such a far distance in the water, the Titanic thought the Samson was the Californian, and the Californian thought the Samson was the Titanic. So that's where all the communication got all messed up. So the evidence for the theory. First off, visibility that night was completely clear. There's many counts of people saying this, that they definitely would have been able to see an iceberg. Even people aboard the Samson that night said that they had seen the icebergs and they were easily able to maneuver around them and avoid them. So they don't understand why, along with us skeptics, why the Titanic wouldn't have been able to see the iceberg and move accordingly. A lot of skeptics to this theory, though, question, well, how did nobody notice that this was switched the ships? The men who were working on the Titanic back then were extremely poor, and it wouldn't have been hard to just pay them to keep quiet. In fact, in 1996, a man stated that his father had worked on the Titanic and had told him about the switch, said that he knew about it. He said that they were paid off and they were threatened with prison time, and not only that, but their loved ones and their family and everything were threatened to with death. So, like I said back then, money could do a lot, and it could easily pay someone to be quiet. Photography was new back then, and there's no video footage that, there was no video of them actually switching the ships. But the photos that were taken before the ship, the Titanic, actually set sail, and the photos from on its maiden voyage. Sorry, like I said, I just mess up my words, but we're not going to edit it out. We're going to keep going. The videos that were actually taken fuel this theory even more. So photos of the progress of the docked Titanic show the ship having 14 portholes and the Californian having 16. But the photos of the Titanic on its maiden voyage show it magically having 16 portholes. And not only just stuff with the portholes, but the windows on the Titanic photos when it was docked and when it actually took its maiden voyage, the windows are completely different. They're spaced different. It looks like a different ship. Excuse me. So when I stated earlier that the Olympic had a bend in the keel, giving it a slight lean to the left, without any prior knowledge of this, there was a scientist on board, Dr. Beasley, who actually wrote about the events he was a survivor of the Titanic. He wrote that night on the Titanic before the crash, he had actually noticed the ship was leaning to one side, and this side was the left. So that seems extremely weird. A lot of wealthy A-list people who were actually friends with J.P. Morgan had booked their trips on the Titanic, hearing of this, massive luxury cruise liner that's unsinkable. They booked trips to go on it. But a lot of them, if not all of them, canceled their trip last minute, just for different circumstances. J.P. Morgan himself actually canceled his own trip the day before the Titanic set sail, saying that he was sick. Guests were told once they were on board that their trip would actually take a little bit longer than expected. The captain said that this was due to they couldn't go full speed because of unstable waters. But people believe that it could have actually been that the patched up hull on the Olympic couldn't handle long distance at high speeds, which completely makes sense. Those who later rode the Olympic, which was fixed and set sail soon after the tragedy with the Titanic, it went on for 25 years being a passenger ship, which is just weird that it had no issues in 25 years after being so damaged. People who rode it said that it felt like a brand new ship, that everything was redone, the windows were new, the floors were new, the rooms were new, that it just felt like a new ship, which to us theorists think that that means that that was the Titanic that they had actually finished. And the most damning evidence, in my opinion at least, is in recent, which I'll try to edit it in, if not, you can look it up yourselves, that in the most recent photos of the wreckage of the Titanic, so on most ships, on the hull, the name of the ship is engraved on it, which I don't know if that's still true, but that was true back then. You can see most of the ships, even the Olympic, having its name engraved in the hull. On the Titanic, instead of it being engraved, there were 2 plates that were bolted onto the hull of the ship that said the Titanic. In the newest photos that they took of the Titanic, those plates have fallen off, and under it you can barely see it, but you can see it in some photos. There's an M and a P engraved into the side of the ship, which again just sparks the whole theory that they actually did switch the ships and the Olympic was actually the Titanic. Sorry about the paper noise, but yeah, I know this video was horrible and the lighting's horrible and the sound's horrible, but I just wanted to get it out for you guys. I hope you still enjoy it. My next video will definitely be more lighting better and produced and have editing. Like I said, it's rough filming on a phone and then editing on a computer that I think is from, it still has like Windows XP on it or Windows 10. It's so old. So hopefully the more I do these, maybe I can start getting income from it. I've been thinking about starting a GoFundMe. If you guys would be interested in that, let me know in the comments below, just to get an actual camera and maybe a computer or at least some editing software that actually works. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. Do you guys think that the ship was switched, or do you think this is just some kind of folklore? There's some other weird theories of the Titanic sinking, like that there was an Egyptian mummy on board of the Titanic that possibly cursed the ship and made it sink. But like I said, with this series, I really just want to focus on one theory that I find compelling and not go into the crazier theories, I guess. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know in the comments down below which other subjects you would like me to talk about. I think the next one I'm going to do is about the moon landing. And again, it'll be better produced, I promise. But subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. That way you'll get notified when I do upload my next video. And until then, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.